From hearty Kansas comfort food to the playoff heat at Kansas Speedway, we're rolling in Bierock sliders into this week's race preview. Well, hi folks, welcome back to Racin-n-Braisin. I am CJ, a lifelong NASCAR fan and chef. On today's menu, I'm going to introduce you to Bierocks, a long-standing Kansas tradition. We'll talk about how I'm going to put a potluck spin on that dish, and then we'll dive into everything you need to know about Cup Series action from Kansas this weekend, schedule, what to know, who to watch, and of course, we'll update the playoff picture, and then we'll round things out today with some news you may have missed from the garage. So I know what you're asking. What are Bierocks? Well, I'll explain it to you. It actually traces its origins back to German settlers who were making their way across the Midwest and settled in Kansas predominantly. What Bierocks specifically are, a German dish. It's a soft, yeasty dough that gets stuffed with ground beef, onion, cabbage, and very simply seasoned with salt and pepper. Then it gets baked to golden perfection, and it comes out in the size of basically a baseball or softball, so handheld, hearty, and comfortable, and so popular among Kansas folk that they have named it the unofficial state sandwich. So, why did I choose to go the slider route? Well, pretty simple, honestly. I was thinking about how I would bring a dish like this to a watch party if I was getting together with friends for the Kansas race this weekend. And it got me to thinking about, ways to spread things out and not take up so much time. The sliders were the perfect solution to that. So the way we'll go about doing this on Sunday is we'll cook our beef and our onions and our cabbage together. That's our filling. We'll cut these sliders in half and then put the filling in the bottom there. And then I got to thinking, well, once we pull these sliders apart, they're probably going to fall apart a lot. So how are we going to hold it together? I think Swiss cheese is the answer to that. So I'm going to incorporate that. And to keep with that German flavor, I am going to brush the top of these buns with butter and sprinkle them with caraway seeds so that they toast up in the oven as we bake everything to perfection. So for your shopping list this weekend, if you're going to make this at home and follow along with me, grab yourself some ground beef, a head of cabbage, some onion, and of course the slider rolls. And if you want to do the Swiss cheese along with me, that's always a good grab too. Make sure your pantry has some caraway seed. If not, go ahead and grab some of that. I think that is going to be a great addition to this dish. I think a great way to think about this dish is that the traditional Bierock is like the entire race, the big package, right? And what we really want is just a pit stop that we can share with all of our teammates and friends. So that's where the sliders are going to come into play. And I think that is going to be a great solution as we get ready to watch Kansas this weekend. So speaking of Kansas race weekend, let's go ahead and dive into the schedule coming up. ARCA is actually going to be joining the guys there this weekend. Their race will be Friday night at 8 o'clock on FS1 if you want to watch. Practice and qualifying for the Cup Series is going to be 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, True TV, followed by the Xfinity race on the CW at 4. And of course, the Cup race, Sunday afternoon, coverage begins at 2:30 on USA. The race will be at 3 o'clock. So a couple things to know about Kansas and the Cup Series as we visit there now for the second time this season. The last time the Cup Series was there, Kyle Larson won in early May, some 19 races ago, which was actually the last time that he has won. And speaking of Kyle Larson, he is the only repeat winner in the last 10 races at Kansas Motor Speedway. I do want to note that this is the first time that the Cup Series has returned to a 1.5-mile track since the Coke 600, which came just after that early May Kansas race. The stats for the Cup Series at this track absolutely favor Hendrick Motorsports and Joe Gibbs Racing. They should be at the top of your card this weekend. I do want to point out, though, there has never been a first-time winner in all 39 races at Kansas Motor Speedway. So who are we watching this weekend? Well, the Vegas odds here absolutely favor Kyle Larson. Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, and Christopher Bell are all at the top. Of course, we're expecting Larson and Hamlin to have great days. This is a great track for them. The 2311 guys, Reddick and Wallace, historically have good stats at this track, although the past two races they have not performed up to expectations. They have definitely disappointed in the standings. So who would I consider dark horses this weekend? Well, I would say Josh Berry or Brad Keselowski could play spoilers for all of the playoff contenders this weekend, though I feel it's going to be very tough for anyone outside of the playoffs to break into the top 10 finishing order, as all of the contenders in the playoffs are strong at Kansas overall. And speaking of playoff drivers, let's go ahead and bring the playoff picture back up here for us. We can see that Joey Logano has moved to plus 24 and 6 on the standing. He's starting to heat up. He's had 3 straight top 5s. That's his best streak since 2019, and definitely heating up at the right time for sure. Chase Briscoe sitting there at the cut line plus 12. He's the only driver in the 2025 playoffs so far to score top 10s in all 4 races. Speaking of right there at the cut line, I do want to let you guys know that the biggest deficit overcome in this round of 12 was 22 points by Chase Elliott back in 2019. Kyle Larson once blew a 29-point cushion in 2017. So, as close as things do seem for 4 through 12 in the standings here, anything could happen. Anybody could make massive changes this weekend. And finally, talking about massive changes, the comeback king in the playoffs is Tyler Reddick. He's clawed out of the round of 12 in the last 2 years, so that negative 23 isn't necessarily a big deal for him. However, he and Bubba Wallace on 2311 are absolutely going to have to perform this weekend and have a great finish to come out at or above that cut line as we head into the Roval next week. Before we wrap things up here today, I do want to touch on the news of the week that you may or may not have heard about. First, and I think this is a big one, Rodney Childers is returning to NASCAR. He signed on with Junior Motorsports to crew chief for the one car next year in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. He's actually going to have 2 drivers with him on the one car. He's going to have Carson Quapple part-time, and Connor Zillage will be jumping down from the Cup Series on occasion, I would suspect, at the road courses on that one car. All week long following that New Hampshire race, eyes were on Denny Hamlin and Ty Gibbs to get some reactions out of them, as well as the rest of the talking heads in the industry this week. Several podcasts were put out this week, and a lot of opinion was given about it. Denny Hamlin's podcast specifically, he talked about how it was an understanding in prior seasons that a non-playoff teammate should be giving right away to their playoff teammates. That's how he was judging things. Should he have wrecked Ty Gibbs to make that point? I don't necessarily think so. But Ty Gibbs probably should not have been racing so aggressively so early in a race. Kevin Harvick chimed in on everything on his Happy Hour podcast, and he put all of the blame on Denny Hamlin. And Ty Gibbs added some fuel to the fire by reposting what Kevin Harvick had to say on social media, and kind of giving the little point there to, this is what I'm talking about. So it seems like things are not getting settled. Coach Gibbs is not getting involved. He said he needs to leave that up to the drivers to figure out. And then finally, a big story, in my opinion, that got some coverage this week from several YouTube channels talking about the TV numbers from last week at New Hampshire. Only 1.29 million viewers for the race overall, which is 500,000 less than what it was the prior year on the same network, roughly about the same time of year. Granted, there was a huge weather delay which impacted the number of viewers last year. We didn't have that this year, and we still had less viewers. Definitely says something about the viewership overall for NASCAR and its fan base. It's been going down. A lot of factors have been given as to why cable subscriptions declining, The NFL is back and, of course, dominating everybody's Sunday right now. And several other things were given for factors, but I think one of the main ones that was missed was talking about NASCAR getting away from its absolute roots, the dream that was NASCAR. No longer can you buy that same car that you see on Sunday in the dealership on Monday. They don't look anything alike anymore. You can't recognize the difference in the cars, and you're certainly not buying a car with a single lug nut on it. So the days of being able to buy that car Monday, take it to your shop in the backyard, get it souped up and fixed up, and take it to the racetrack on Saturday to try out for a Sunday Cup race are gone. It's been priced out. There's no way that's happening. I don't know of anybody that would have the money to be able to afford to buy a Cup car, much less pay to have it put into a race. And on top of that, the NASCAR administration has kind of shut down that possibility by restricting the amount of cars entering any given Sunday to 40 because of the lawsuit that they're facing from 2311 of Front Row Motorsports. So a lot of factors going into that dream of NASCAR disappearing. Plus, that dream of NASCAR is not reaching the younger audience anymore. When I was a kid getting into NASCAR, the toy aisle where all the Matchbox were had all sorts of NASCAR stuff. You don't find that anymore. The hobby shops that I frequented as a kid, if they're still existing, don't have NASCAR models in them anymore. And finally, the merchandise isn't in your face in stores anymore. I know I don't see it at my local Walmart or Target like I used to when I was younger. You just don't see NASCAR related merchandise in everyday shopping venues. So you have to go to the track if you want something, and when you get to the track, those merchandise haulers are ridiculously overpriced. $60, $70, $80 for a hoodie, $40 for a t-shirt, $30, $35, $40 for a hat. It's gotten out of hand. Bottom line, the cars, the cost, and the access don't connect to the fans anymore. It's priced out, and it's getting more expensive, just like everything these days. I'm not going to put a social commentary on it, but that's exactly what's happening. NASCAR is losing a large chunk of its fan base and not grabbing on opportunities to seek that younger fan base like we used to see back in the 90s and the early 2000s. So that's my take on what the current state of NASCAR is and what's going on with the viewership. A lot of factors playing into it, but I think at its core, and this is a big problem for NASCAR, is that they have gotten away from the dream that was once NASCAR, that we were sold when we first got into this sport back in its heyday, back when it was at its height. Well, that's it for your Kansas preview. Bierock sliders will be for the watch party, and we will get together after the race to catch up on all of the drama from the track. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes and recipes from each race weekend. I'll catch up with you guys Sunday night when we pull those sliders out of the oven and enjoy and talk about what Kansas had to offer. Until then, guys, stay happy.